Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Carl and Rick Talk Risk. Hey, Rick.
Yo,
We're in our very light shirts, and I'm drinking milk. We're like a commercial for.
I'm drinking coffee.
Oh,
This
oh, that's
is
cool.
this is out of a mug that was created for me by my daughter unit as a Christmas gift. So she's got number one father unit on it, and then on the side she's got all the types of books that I read, which is finance, comics, Sudoku, physics, science, and philosophy. She's got a fountain pen down there, the bow tie there, the
Yeah.
flying Dominican product there, the coffee there, the hamburger there, the fine product, fine water from Scotland there. Yeah, so
Very
I got
nice.
my life in a capsule here.
Very nice. Okay. This is a random thought that you made me get on, but
Everything's random so far in this.
I
So
I know. Let's keep it going. I read Tintin books with my son. I loved Tintin when I was a kid, so I'm trying to and he loves it too. He's crazy about it. But as you know, Captain Haddock loves whiskey. If there's one thing Captain Haddock loves, he's Tintin's older friend, loves whiskey. So anytime my son sees me, having a beer or something, he's like, Captain Haddock, you're drinking whiskey. So
well,
yeah,
there you go.
yeah, pretty funny. Um, Rick, I shared something on LinkedIn. So did things a little differently this week. I thought, why not put it out there? It was a Financial Times article, and I commented maybe a topic for our next episode.
And
Um,
I totally ignored my homework
oh,
assignments. But
that's
anyhow,
okay. That's okay. I did make up a hashtag for us. I hope you don't mind. Carl and Rick Talk Risk. It could be Critter if you shorten it. CRTR.
okay.
Yeah, I know. Didn't go anywhere. You always hope that you have a nice abbreviation, but I'm not sure I get one from Carl and Rick Talk Risk. Anyway, let me get into the article a bit because I liked it. It was a dose of honesty and a break from, oh my God, prices are so high. The pump, nobody can, all the rationing. There's a lot of worry at the moment, and this person, as usual with the Financial Times, took a totally different perspective that I thought was really, really interesting, and looked at all the upsides. Right, something you can get behind. And let me give you the gist. Um, High energy prices are a signal. If you can't fill up your tank, you're gonna drive less. You're gonna stay at home more. You're gonna do other activities. You might go for your vacation closer to home. Um, that's in the personal domain. So they make you make different decisions about your life, your investments, and so on. But they also, they're a signal to the market too, right? Higher rents mean that developers build more apartments, and want to rent them out. It's a signal to the market. And the opposite of that is rent caps. I think that's the classic example where governments, in their effort to do a good thing, put a rent cap in place, which breaks that signal and makes it very difficult in the long run to build enough homes to house everybody. Of sure, some people are very happy paying a.
Let the record show that was not Rick that came out with the right wing view on rent caps and government influence. For once, I was not the
Yes,
instigator of that.
you were subjected to it by me, Rick. It's on the record. Um, I don't know if they. I think they did use rent caps as an example. It was the first one I could think of. So I like the whole setup of the article. I think it's very smart. Here's where my mind went next, because I wanted to relate it to risk management. We have risk appetite statements, and I think it's one of the first things we ever spoke about when we first met 3-4 years ago. Was risk appetite, and I remember you asked me about appetite versus capacity. I think
Or appetite versus tolerance.
tolerance. That's it. Yeah. And I was thinking about, risk appetite statements, which kind of put limits on the different activities the bank or the corporation can do. And those limits are static. You might look at them once a year. You probably should. But I wonder if there's something in this article for risk appetites, statements, limits, that risk management makes them more dynamic. When prices signal something, our behavior changes as consumers, as governments, and so on. But our risk appetite statements are X. You cannot go above this line, no matter what happens. It kind of breaks the signal from the market, from oil prices, from financial markets. Do I know how a dynamic risk appetite would look? No, I'm not quite sure. But it got me thinking, why are our risk appetite statements static? They're on paper. They don't change. They don't react. Maybe they should. I don't know. What do you think?
First off, full disclosure, I did not do my homework. I did not read the article. Secondly, I think that we have to, I think there's a strong case to be made for thinking about it in terms of signals versus catalysts. Okay, but that's a discussion for another time. I think that there is a difference between a signal and a catalyst, because a lot of the things that you're describing from the article that causes where the prices causes changes that would be more of a catalyst to me. Having said that, looking at this from a complexity lens point of view, okay, one of the things I constantly go on about in my public lectures on complexity is I always end with the same quote from Eric Hoffer. In times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. And I think that taking a complexity view of things is, again, complexity arises when you have agents, i.e. people, company, industries, countries, whatever, birds, bees, the raccoon, which is currently in my backyard right now, probably thinking of a plan to get into my green bin. You have agents who can connect and who can adapt. And that gives rise to complexity. Now, you have a choice as an individual, as a raccoon, there is a raccoon there right now, or as a company. You can get the connection, i.e. the signal, and adapt. Change your mind, change your opinion, change your philosophy, whatever. Yeah. Or you can stay static. But it's only those who continuously adapt that can deal with the complexity. And again, I'm using complexity in the scientific sense of the word, not in the layperson's sense of the word. So having said that, the challenge for the risk manager is to determine what's signal and what's noise. What's true meaning and what's over/under reaction.
Right. Yeah. Have things actually changed, or is this just a blip? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the question, because there might have been a more peaceful time before about 2020, where you could look at your risk appetite once a year, and yeah, it's good enough. Tweak a few numbers. We're on a good course. I think for a lot of companies, those times have passed. And there should be some thought to when, maybe not making it dynamic, but what's the trigger to update this? Yeah. When would we have a look at this again? Because it can't be next year at a designated slot, because the world's not waiting for you, right? Your competitors are not waiting for you to update it.
Yeah, but I think it's even more nuanced to this. And I'm going to go back a bit in time, and I might misquote this, so apologies to the author if I mess it up, but there's a great book written by, I think it was Aaron Brown, who was hedge fund trader / risk manager, called The Poker Face of Wall Street.
Hmm.
And he kind of compared trading and, by association, risk management to playing a game of poker. Okay? And there's times when you need to be aggressive. I have a wide range or a large risk appetite, and there's times that you need to be conservative and you need to play tight or have a very small risk appetite. And
Yeah.
does that come from a statement, or does that come from knowing your organization and understanding your organization? And in part, I think that comes from the risk culture of the organization. I think if you have a proper risk culture, the organization as a whole kind of will organically realize that this is a time that we open up the risk appetite spigot, or this is a time where we, kind of rethink things and don't worry about being a step or two behind, so that we can deal with the situation and let the uncertainty play itself out and react accordingly.
Yep, that's very well said. I had a flashback of your story about the car accident going into the peninsula in Halifax, and I think the way you framed it is, he was probably observing the speed limit, right? The fixed static number that's on the sign. He, it's just he didn't read the conditions, or he didn't care about the amount of rain, and
or
I think it was icy. Yeah, it was just stupid. Yeah, that's it. But like that. Okay, they had a number. I mean, they could even make that number digital and change it based on conditions. But still, if you're relying on that number, you're not relying on your own intuition and sense of the danger.
Yeah, and I think the number is the wrong way to look at it. I realize that's how every organization looks at it. Risk management has become has changed from a wishy-washy, let's make sense of things and, wave our hands around, to, very well digitized and, to the nth thing. Yeah. I think the important thing is not necessarily what you set your risk appetite at, and not necessarily how often you change it for the conditions, but the fact that you are thinking about your risk appetite. Even just thinking about risk appetite, not necessarily that you say, I'm now going to set it to 7.297643. That's irrelevant. The mere fact that you're thinking, should I increase it or should I decrease it?
Yeah.
Just the thinking about it, I think, does miraculous things. By the way, this is a total aside. I believe that having a personal risk appetite is one of the best self-help things that you can do.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that. No, that's very, very true.
That's something I try to stress with my students, is because they're going to, arguably one of Canada's top universities, number 6, according to the latest Financial Times rankings, that their risk appetite should be wider. Because, they've, in my opinion, they've got a better education than most. Not the best education, but they got a better education than most, and that allows them to be more out on the risk spectrum than most. And that's basically part of having a personal risk appetite statement.
Yeah,
and how the world reacts to you is not a price signal, but it's a signal as to whether you should widen it or narrow it.
Yeah, and avoid that kind of herding mentality, right? Everybody's getting into investment banking, I should do it. There's a few other considerations, maybe. Okay, I'm. Thanks for playing along, Rick. I didn't know where that conversation was going to go, but I knew.
I'm not sure I know where it went, even after going on it, but anyway.
Went somewhere. By the way, I still think the article is worth a read. And if you're watching this, give it a look. I think it's nice when somebody has a contrarian view on a situation that most people are fairly in agreement with, that things are bad right now and everything's expensive, but there are good things that come out of that. I don't think I mentioned it. I think I mentioned it before the podcast and then I forgot. But the author did mention the 1970s, when oil prices were very high and the Middle East was very volatile, that a lot of patents were discovered for renewable energy. So a lot of that originates from that time, because oil prices were so high. We had to find something else.
Hey, signals, shocks, callus, whatever, they're awesome for getting you out of a rut.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And in
Shake you up.
fact, a lot of times they're absolutely necessary for getting you out of a rut.
Yep, 100%. Okay, well, thanks,
Those
Rick.
with the biggest risk appetites are most likely to benefit from a shock.
Yeah,
Those
exactly.
with the smallest risk appetites are probably going to be hurt by a shock.
Yeah, unable to react, right? Okay. Let us know what you think on LinkedIn or YouTube. Doesn't matter. And until next time. Cheerio.
Have fun.